Hey out there, legal warriors. Will an investigator help your criminal case? When is it a good idea? Why might we need an investigator? And how could just running out and getting your own investigator actually hurt your chances in court? If you're interested in this area of the law, stay tuned. This is the video for you. My name is Attorney Lance Fryrear. I'm a defense attorney in Linwood, Washington. My law firm's been defending people charged with crimes all throughout Washington State for more than 20 years, and I'm putting out these videos to help educate the public. So if you find this useful, please like and please subscribe. More people get to see it. More people get the help they need. Now, as always, I'm just going to jump right into it. An investigator in a criminal case. Interesting thing is, for the most part, private attorneys that are doing general practice defense work don't often use investigators because they can be expensive for the client, and they may not always be necessary because oftentimes a really skilled attorney can get that great result, that dismissal, that reduction, without resorting to hiring an investigator. However, on major crimes, major felonies, things like that, they're almost always necessary because we're going to need more of a factual development of the case, or we're going to need the ability to be able to impeach a witness later if they happen to change their story. So, investigator, what do we mean? That's someone licensed by the state of Washington with a sort of a private investigator's license. So not everybody can play the role of an investigator in your criminal case. What does an investigator do? Well, usually the investigator is going to be employed to do several different things. The primary thing might be to prepare for witness interviews. If a case is not getting resolved and we have to get towards witness interviews, that might be interviewing the police officer in a felony matter, typically interviewing lay witnesses, or usually the last person to be interviewed would be an alleged victim if there is an alleged victim in the case. Then an investigator might be who we use to participate in that process. And why would we want to use someone? Why doesn't the attorney just go do it all themselves? It would save money, and it's the attorney's case. Well, I think one of the reasons, and the most important reason that we want an investigator doing the question asking, is that if we get an important witness that says one thing during an interview, the light was red, but during the trial, now they say the light was green, and we want the light to be red, what they said during the investigation, we can't call ourselves as a party, as a witness, to say that, hey, you changed your story, here's what you said earlier, isn't that right? We can't put ourselves on the witness stand as the attorney because an attorney can't testify in their own case, right? The attorney cannot be a party to the lawsuit, to the criminal matter or anything else, can't be a witness. And so if that person changes their story, we want to bring in that investigator. We get that investigator to be sworn in, right? They are employed by the client. They are not the attorney who's arguing the case, and so they can testify. Hey, no, earlier that witness said, when I interviewed them on September 1st, 2024, the witness said that the light was red, and that impeaches them changing their story. And so that's a very important technical reason that we need someone there besides the attorney doing the interview if we think it's an important fact witness. Secondarily, oftentimes we can have an investigator go track down other witnesses, either neutral witnesses or positive witnesses. We want to hopefully avoid them tracking down negative witnesses, but sometimes we don't know if a witness is neutral or not. The most typical example might be a bar fight. Imagine a very serious bar fight where one party ends up with a broken nose or a broken jaw or something, and then the client gets arrested for some type of felony assault. And maybe the client's version of the events is that it was self-defense, that they got jumped by these other people and they had the right to use a reasonable force to defend themselves. Well, we know the officers don't think that in this situation because the officers made an arrest of this hypothetical client, right? They arrested them. The witness statements are obviously against them, right? Let's say you're at a bar that wasn't your home location. Let's say it was a place you don't frequent. And so all the townies in there are ganging up against you, saying that you're the one who caused the problem. But maybe your investigator goes to the bar and starts to get some names of other people that were there. Maybe your investigator goes and gets information from your friends who are there that maybe aren't wanting to participate. Maybe the investigator then talks in an educated way to the bartender or the waitress who might have a different point of view and starts to do the investigation that law enforcement did not do. And if that investigation goes well, and these people feel aggrieved on behalf of the person who got arrested and they don't think it was right, sometimes they're willing to give up statements. Sometimes they're willing to cooperate to help right the wrong. And that's not something the police are going to do. Once the police make that arrest decision, it's over. They are done. They're not trying to help the person they arrested. So sometimes an investigator can go out and help improve the facts of the case. When else can an investigator help? Well, in certain DUI type cases, right? If there's a particularly important field sobriety test at a very difficult situation where something happened and the client has a lot on the line, maybe it's a borderline breath test, there was no breath test or blood draw, so these field sobriety tests are crucial. Well, getting an investigator to go out and take measurements, someone who's skilled in this, who can take measurements about what happened, look at traffic flow, look at weather conditions, so we can get the things that weren't exactly right, that made it unfair for that field sobriety test. How else can an investigator help? Well, they can help your attorney sort of come up with new angles in the case, right? They are looking at the case fresh, typically. They're going to look typically at the discovery or the relevant portions necessary for the investigation. And a good investigator has a whole lot of attorneys that they work for or they work with. And they might have some ideas that the attorney that's working with you may not have thought of, right? And more heads are typically better than less heads. Also, by having an investigator do questioning, with taking that pressure off the attorney can pay more attention to what that witness is saying, how they're saying it, what they're not saying, what's making them nervous or not, how they present. Because when you're in the heat of the battle yourself asking the questions, your brain is going different places. And it can be a big help sitting back and observing. Now, does that mean your attorney isn't going to do anything? Probably not, right? In our firm, we might have a certain number of questions we want the investigator to get to. We might pop in for strategic reasons to change the tone or the quality of the questioning. And we want to behave a certain way, right? We're influencing everybody while a witness interview or something like that is going on, right? The prosecutor might be there, the victim's advocate might be there, right? If you have a good legal team, they're always trying to influence the situation in some way that they believe will benefit the situation for you, the client. So lots of different ways an investigator can help. How does an investigator get paid? Well, if it's with a private attorney, they're going to charge the client some type of typically hourly rate. Now, if you happen to be represented by the public defender, oftentimes there's going to be an investigator that's on the public defender's staff that is paid by the government, right? And there's case limits and things like this, and so they might not be quite as helpful as a privately paid investigator because they have so many cases that they're dealing with at once. But there may be an investigator, if you have a public defender, that's involved in certain cases. It depends on the public defender's office. So it all sounds like a bright side, Lance. Why wouldn't you always want an investigator? Well, we already talked about one reason. One is cost. It costs quite a bit to the client, and sometimes the benefits can be illusory or minimal, right? If we have a case that we anticipate a certain positive outcome based upon what we see in the report, based upon our knowledge of the prosecutor, the court, person's history, we don't need to go out and spike the ball and get an investigator to make it a certain, overkill, more expense for the client. A second reason why we might not want an investigator, and also why you should probably not just go run out and hire your own, is because sometimes an investigator can make something worse. Part of the theory of defense, at least in my brain, is that not everybody who could be a witness really wants to participate in a criminal proceeding, right? The victim sometimes does want to participate, the alleged victim, but oftentimes the bit players on the outside, the person that saw what happened at the Safeway, or the other driver that saw someone maybe pull a gun or who knows what, getting involved costs a lot to them. There's a lot of transactional costs in that, physically being somewhere, missing work, emotionally going through the stress of it. They could be afraid. Now, if they watch a lot of court TV, they may really want to do it. But what can happen is especially if you have a sort of an investigator that's just let loose with no direction, which if you hired someone, that's probably what would happen. They can do more harm than good. They can upset people. They can piss them off, right, by the way they ask a question. We've seen situations where I would suspect that the way a question was asked made the witness more against whoever that investigator was working for. They could also reactivate people that really didn't know anything about it, right, and turns out to be against whoever they're investigating for, right? Hey, I had this guy come knocking at my door. I had no idea that case was still going on. Yeah, I really want to hang this defendant. So there does need to be some type of reasoned plan that hopefully mitigates risk while maximizes the potential for useful information to help your case. So we really love using investigators on very serious crimes. Usually serious felonies is where we rely on them. We rely on their expertise, their knowledge, their experience to help us develop the facts that we need that weren't developed by the police, or to show the lies that weren't ferreted out by the police, or to track down witnesses that no one even knew about, right, to begin with. That can all be helpful. Sometimes you just get answers you don't like, right? Sometimes you're going to get an answer that makes the case worse. It's not uncommon to have some type of serious offense where now the victim starts saying additional information that the police did not get out of them at the time, and now the client might be facing additional charges or upgraded charges based upon what comes out at the witness interview. So the criminal system has risk, has reward, and we want to make sure that we go into it intelligently while we're trying to limit the risk for maximizing the reward. So that's what I wanted you to know about investigators. I haven't done a video about this before because hopefully your case isn't so serious that it's absolutely necessary, but it's really important that you know they exist, when we can use them, when we shouldn't, and hopefully you can talk to your attorney about it if it's something that you're interested in. So if you found this video useful, please like and please subscribe. More people get to see it. More people get the help they need. And more importantly, if you have a criminal matter in Washington State, feel free to reach out to my firm. If we get on board, we'll listen to what happened, we'll identify a way forward, and we'll be there for you. Thank you.